John Razimus here with the John Razimus channel, youtube.com/Hoax Hunter. I am the Hoax Hunter, and if the volume is too high, let me know. Today is Back to the Future Day, October 21st, 2017. In the movie, it was 2015, 2 years ago. There's the jacket. I decided to dress up as Doc Brown. I don't know where the sunglasses I made were. The the metal shades Doc Brown wears. And I also made a tie, a see-through tie out of tape. Let me check to see if I am on the air. I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus, continuing to stream live. This is the second live stream I have ever done, and this is somewhat of a Hoax Hunter episode, as I will be talking about the origin story of Back to the Future on this Back to the Future Day. The origin story of Back to the Future, and I'm not going to be wearing this the whole time. I'm going to take this off, but let me take a look and see what's going on. All right. Gonna have to navigate to see. I'm brand new to this. You gotta realize, I'm brand new to this. Wear it the whole time. No. I'm not gonna be wearing this the whole time. But the origin story for Back to the Future, the movie, believe it or not, I have too many things open. I gotta open these. I gotta close these applications. Too many things open. Is my volume too loud? Is my volume too loud? Let me know in this episode of Hoax Hunter, if you will. It's not really a hoax to be inspired by a book, so it's not really a hoax. Robert Zemeckis is off the hook. He didn't hoax anything, although he did say, and this is coming from a Back to the Future fan, they told me that he said that he came up with the idea while he was in high school for the movie Back to the Future. And that maybe the Enchanted Under the Sea dance, maybe that scene, maybe he went to a themed dance like that in the movie, and he's old enough to have gone to a themed dance like that. But the actual essence, the actual source of Back to the Future on this October 21st Back to the Future Day is an obscure book entitled Back to the Future. So not only did he borrow from this book greatly, but he didn't even bother changing the name. Here is the title, if you can read it. Right here. Back to the Future by Me Burn Stanleyland. And when I was in Universal Studios on October 21st, 2015, I mentioned to the VIP employee of Universal Studios, I said, did you know there was a book called Back to the Future written in 1947? And he's like, no, never heard of it. And I said, yeah, the guy's name is Me Burn Stanleyland. It sounds like a made-up name, a really old-fashioned name. It's a pretty gnarly name, to say the least. But the guy is real. He's legitimate. Years ago, I tried to create a Wikipedia page entry for Me Burn Stanleyland. And of course, the people who control Wikipedia struck it and deleted the page within seconds, saying he's not famous enough. Well, in my book, this guy is famous enough because he wrote the book Back to the Future. I only own 2 copies. One with the cover in plastic, one without. But it's the same copy. There's only one edition, the first edition. So this is a very obscure book that Robert Zemeckis knew nobody read, that he could easily borrow from. And the title is the most obvious borrowing, but let's get into the details, specifically showing that Robert Zemeckis owned a copy of this book back before he wrote the script for the movie Back to the Future. I gotta take this off. I gotta take this stuff off. Oh my gosh, it's... Okay, I just had to take that costume off. All right. Thank you for watching. I'm John Razimus. Thank you for watching. This is Back to the Future Day, October 21st, 2015. I'm going to get into the details of the book, Back to the Future, written by me, Stanleyland, and see how it compares to the movies. I wrote the notes right here in this notebook, and I am, and I will be doing a very detailed episode where I piece by piece show it to the point where other people are going to steal the idea. I think my cord is hitting my microphone. Anyway, let's start with point number 1. They both share the exact same title, Back to the Future, Back to the Future. Happy Back to the Future Day to you too. So that's point number 1. Point number 2. The main characters in the story are a duo. What kind of duo? Well, 2 guys. We have a professor, a doctor in this original book. And then we have a professor doctor in the movies. That's just like Rick and Morty, right? Well, Rick and Morty is obviously greatly borrowed and inspired by Back to the Future. So we have 3 shows that have duos, but this is the very first story. It's not a show, but hopefully this will be turned into a movie one day. It's entertaining enough where I would watch the movie. I read it front to back, and I'm going to give you and break down the details. The main character is a guy named Dr./Professor Peter Benting. Peter Benting invents time travel. The first page of the book talks about, it's very similar, it mirrors the first scene in Back to the Future, where Marty walks into Doc's lab and he gets a phone call, and maybe I'm skipping ahead to when he was sleeping. But the fact is, the beginning of Back to the Future, Marty gets a phone call. He picks up the phone. He's like, yeah, what's going on? And Doc says, are you awake? He's like, yeah, of course. Doc says, oh, meet me at the Twin Pines Mall at whatever, like 1 a.m. or something. I can't remember the exact time. But the very first page in this book, Dr. Benting, creator, inventor of time travel, asks his colleague, can you meet me here at such and such time? It goes beyond that. The name of the Marty character in this book, his nickname, which Dr. Benting constantly refers to him as, is Monkey. So Monkey is the Marty character. We have Dr. Benting and Monkey, time travel duo. We have Dr. Brown and Marty McFly, time travel duo. We have the crazy professor guy and Rick, and then Morty and Rick and Morty. And it's pretty obvious that this is the original. They didn't even bother changing the first and last letter. Marty comes from Morty, and the newest incarnation is, Monkey. We have Monkey, Marty, Morty. So it's hilarious how few letters they changed around, but it goes beyond that. Let me talk about the time travel device. Now, this book had inspirations too. Every story draws inspiration from different places. This book was clearly inspired by The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. In H.G. Wells's Time Machine story, there's a chair with wheels on it. There's a crystal master knob switch thing you gotta turn. And in this book, the time machine is a table. And you get on the table flat on your back. And there is, similar to H.G. Wells's The Time Machine, there is like a master switch. It's a special master switch knob that is very hard to come by, very difficult, similar to how difficult the parts were to create the time travel element, the flux capacitor, in the DeLorean in Back to the Future. There is a scene when Marty meets Doc Brown in the movie, and Marty sees the plutonium and asks Doc, "Is this sucker nuclear?" And Doc Brown says, No. Just the flux capacitor needs yada, yada, yada. And a very similar line is in this book. Let me take a look. I got to look at my notes to see what that line is. Well, let me talk about one similarity. We have the first time traveler in Back to the Future was Einstein the dog, Dr. Emmett Brown's dog. And Einstein was the guinea pig for the experiment. They didn't know what was going to happen. He was fine. Everything worked out. In this book, Back to the Future, written by Meeber and Stanleyland in 1947, the guinea pig in this book is a literal guinea pig, tiny animal, a guinea pig. So Dr. Bennett puts the guinea pig on the table, does the switch thing, and the hamster or guinea pig, whatever, goes into the future, and then he turns it the other direction, and it comes back like a minute later, just like in the movie with Einstein, the dog. And in this case, the hamster got sick and died very quickly. So that's a sad story, but I don't want to ruin too much, but the chances are you're not going to read this book anytime soon. I can't find any copies online except for this one and this one. I bought this copy a good 10 years ago, and I bought this copy like 3 months ago. So I did grab the only copy on Amazon.com because it had the nice cover. Let's take a look at the cover in and of itself. The cover is a mock newspaper. It's a fake newspaper that the author used to decorate the book with fake future stories. And it's very reminiscent of the future USA Today newspaper that Marty McFly is shown by Doc Brown in 2015. In that USA Today newspaper, there is red borders, just like the red borders on this fake newspaper. I thought that was an interesting little detail. But somewhere in the book, Monkey, the Marty character, does ask Dr. Peter Benting, the Doc Brown character, is this sucker nuclear? He basically asks the exact same question Marty McFly asked. And I can't remember what the response was. I'm going to make a really detailed episode where I break down everything, where I'm going to take photographs of the book It's from 1947, and it's actually starting to disintegrate. So I can't even scan it. I'm going to have to take photographs. I had to very carefully turn the pages when I was reading it, and it's already falling apart. So, for historical reasons, I do need to preserve it. In the book, there's a mention of a Benting Time Research Institute. Have you ever heard of Doc Brown's Time Research Institute? It was featured on the Back to the Future The Ride, when you're in the queue for the ride. And I think this ride might still exist in Japan, but they did disable the Florida and Hollywood versions at Universal Studios. But I was able to go on the ride 10, 15 times, and it was pretty awesome. It was amazing. And the new Simpsons ride is the exact same ride. If the volume is too loud, let me know, and I will turn it down. So I'm not sure if the volume is too loud or not. Let me know. So the Simpsons ride is the Back to the Future ride. They just changed the graphics. But while you were in queue for the Back to the Future ride and you looked up and you saw the videos, Dr. Brown was showing off his funny inventions. And I believe, I could be mistaken, but it sounded exactly like the Time Research Institute, something to that effect. But there are many, 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 many more details. Strangely, there's a character in the book, and this is just synchronicity. I understand some things are just going to be synchronicity. There's a character in the book named Parkinson, Mr. Parkinson. And obviously, famously, Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's. I thought that was a little eerie when I read that. They mentioned Mr. Parkinson like 3 or 4 times. And best wishes to Michael J. Fox on his Michael J. Fox Foundation. So I do support that. But there are many details. Let's take a look at my notes. All right. On page 24, it mentions a life jacket. Where have we heard a life jacket being mentioned concerning a time traveler in a story called Back to the Future? Page 24. I'm going to read this life jacket scene. Yes, Mr. Benting, bone dry he was, Clayton emphasized. The word bone heavily. I was not much reassured. Anyhow, we haven't got a life jacket, said Peter. Okay, maybe that is simply me looking a little bit too deep into the story. Just reminded me of the scene where people confuse Marty McFly for wearing a life jacket because they're not familiar with 1985 fashion of his puffy vest. But that was the weakest one. Let's try to find a better one. All right. There's a master switch in the book. It's essentially the flux capacitor. Without the master switch, it doesn't work, but that was borrowed from H.G. Wells's The Time Machine. Okay, one of the most obvious similarities between the book and the movie Back to the Future, 1947 book, 1985 movie, are the time distances, the times that they travel to. In the movie, Doc Brown has Marty travels from 1985 to 1955 and then back to 1985. In part 2, we know there's an alternate. Just forget about the alternates. They go from 1955 back to 1985, from 1985 to 2015. So these 30-year increments, I believe. Yes, 30-year increments. I'm really bad at math. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in the book, there's very similar to 30-year increments in which they go. And the exact years are as follows, as soon as I can find it in my notes. Okay. The year is 1947. The book was published in 1947. The characters exist in 1947. The farthest in the future they go is the year 2047. Thought that was interesting. 2047. Okay. And they go to some other times. Let's see. I think they go to the 80s. Let me see. Remember, this was written in 1947. All right, let's see. They go to 1987. They go from 1947 to 1987, and then from 1947 to 2047, they go 10 years, 40 years, and 100 years. But it's always in very similar increments to the movie. I think Robert Zemeckis read it. He was inspired by it. He didn't break any rules. But I personally think that he should acknowledge, here's a book, check it out. It's pretty cool. The very last page of the book, the very last page blew me away. Or the second or third to last, I'll find it. But it concretely, with solid proof, proved to me that Robert Zemeckis read this book. Let me find it. It is over the top, nail in the coffin for this. But here, there's a very cool quote in the beginning of the book. It goes like this: "We go onwards into the future as into a dark corridor," by Samuel Butler. Very cool quote. We go onward into the future as into a dark corridor. I thought that was really cool. On page 257 is the biggest piece of evidence besides the title of the book being exactly the same. Near the end of the book, Dr. Bennett, who is essentially Dr. Brown, says to Monkey, who is essentially Marty McFly. And this is after a lot of time travel experiments have taken place, and Marty and Doc Brown are finally in the same time, and they're meeting up together, and they recognize each other and they know each other. And Dr. Bennett says the following: "Great Scott! Monkey," he said. "Great Scott." I rest my case. Great Scott is the catchphrase of Dr. Benting, Professor Benting, in the 1947 book Back to the Future. Great Scott is his exclamation of seeing Monkey, his friend. And Monkey's real name is Monkton. So Monkton, he just changed it from Monkton to Monkey. But you got to admit, and I have stacks and stacks more evidence, but the pages are very fragile. I don't want to whip through them. I've already seen pages start to break apart. But I do have many pages: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 pages of notes in this tiny notebook. And Great Scott, from the doctor who invented time travel in the 1947 novel Back to the Future, is too big of a coincidence. Them going to similar time jumps into the future, very much too similar. Now, I can tell you one reason which would motivate Robert Zemeckis to never mention the book, other than people knowing he would have been inspired by it and that he didn't 100%. I do respect Robert Zemeckis' creativity. if I came across this book and I developed anything even close to the awesome standard of Back to the Future, I would be greatly, it's he did turn a cool idea into something better. So I have to admit, Robert Zemeckis created a legacy and a very cool story. In no way, shape, or form am I saying this book exactly equates to the script for the movie, because it doesn't. But there are many, many more examples. But let me give you a little. Oh my gosh. Okay. There are some jokes. That is one thing that I found funny. There actually are some jokes in this book, Back to the Future, jokes that make it a sci-fi comedy. Back to the Future, the movie, is a sci-fi comedy. Now, the jokes are unexpected. And because you're reading it without any tone of voice, you have to reread it and see the joke for what it is. Let me read a couple of the jokes. Okay. I have to say, as I was saying, one of the reasons Robert Zemeckis didn't mention the book is because the German guy who lost World War II is mentioned in this book at least 4 times. Because in 1947, he was in the news constantly, obviously, the Allied forces defeating Germany. But the H guy, and I can't mention his name because on this particular website, his name is forbidden. There's even some random top 10 or something video where they're talking about him and they changed the name because they don't want to get stricken down. So you're not going to hear any curse words in this live stream. It's all clean, not even mention of that bad guy who was defeated in World War II. But there are jokes in here. Let me find them. There are some really funny jokes. All right. There's a time cop in the book. I doubt it inspired the movie Time Cop, but it is possible. I think this book inspired a lot of different TV shows and movies. And there's even another TV show I think it inspired, but I'm going to cover that in the more detailed thorough. And after this, I'm going to talk about other subjects that you guys want to talk about. And I'm going to talk about the news, the breaking news, that the president did say something today, but let's find a joke. I saw it. It said joke. Let me find it. All right. Page 2. Joke. Page 204. All right. Page 204. There's a joke about a book in this book. Let me turn and check it out. If this is the boring part, trust me, I'm going to talk about very interesting things. 204. This is my second live stream ever. I'm brand new to it. Oh, this isn't the best joke. This is probably the weakest joke in the book, but so this isn't particularly a good joke, but a lady named Miriam finds Monkton, aka Monkey, the Marty McFly character. Apparently, this character writes a book in the future about his time traveling events. And to be honest, this entire book is basically that journal of events. And Miriam is asking, because Miriam is from the future, she's asking because she's already read the entire book. She read Monkton's entire book on his time travel exploits. She is sent to the past. She's stuck there. She's trying to get back. And she recognizes Monkton, Monkey. She says, hey, you're the author of this book. It's amazing. You ought to get a hold of the book and read it. And he says, I think I'll write it first. I don't know. It's not the best joke. Not the best joke. There's actually a super hilarious joke in here. Ah, more details. All right. Well, does anyone have any questions? I'm sorry for dragging this on so long. Does anyone have any questions about this subject? Talk about plagiarism. Does anyone have any questions either about this book, Back to the Future? I am a huge Back to the Future fan. Or anything in the news today, perhaps with the president. You want to talk about what the president said today about JFK? I thought it was pretty groundbreaking. All right, let's see. Okay, yeah. All right. There is a sort of a joke on page 98, something about the black market. Page 98. Okay. In this future, it's a crazy dystopian future, which sort of reminds me of 1984. And I believe this book was written before 1984. So that book possibly was inspired by this book. In this book, Back to the Future, the year 2047, a time which was never touched in the Back to the Future movies, very far in the future. I can tell you the gist of what it was like. It was very surreal in the fact that if you wanted to get food, you had to get in a food line. So there was basically everyone was poor and there was a few elite super rich. Very much like the movie Hunger Games, like the books The Hunger Games. So this book could have inspired the Hunger Games as well. I think it inspired many more TV shows and movies. I think it's the unsung hero of the sci-fi genre. The Hunger Games. The elite, the few that are starving for food, begging for food, but it's not exactly like Hunger Games. Although they do have districts, but they don't have names like that. They keep the original city names. But if you want food, you got to get in a food line. So Monkey time travels to 1947 as an experiment. The doctor just wants him to report back. What's 1947 like? But what happens is he sends him to the future. The police start to raid Dr. Benting's place. A similar event happened in the Back to the Future movie. I think the alternate universe where Dr. Emmett Brown was committed to the insane asylum. The police start to raid Dr. Benting's laboratory, and it's in the process of him sending Monkton to the future. They see Monkton disappear and go into the future. They ask him, "What is this device? What are you doing? This is illegal." Dr. Benting tells him he invented time travel, and they believe it just at face value. Like, okay, that's cool. You invented time travel? All right, we need to regulate this. So the government immediately wants to regulate time travel. And on the spot that time travel is invented, there's a plaque. And the plaque says, on this site, Sir Peter Benting, 1911, blank, because he's not dead yet, conducted experiments which culminated in the conquest of time, 1947. I think a very similar plaque existed in H.G. Wells's The Time Machine. It didn't say time travel, but it did say the name of the guy that lived there. So I think he got the idea from The Time Machine. But the joke about the black market. So Monkey is in the future. He's starving for food. He gets in a food line. He waits. I think he gets to like a midway point, and there's a police officer. And the police officer says, "Papers, identification." And he's like, "I don't have anything." And the cop is like, "You need an official government food card. Without that, you don't get any food." He said, "Where do I get an official government food card?" He said, "You get in the official government food card line over there." And it gets to the point where you need a card to get in the food card line. And it's kind of like the British movie, The Galaxy. What's it called? It's called Guide to the Galaxy. In that movie, Guide to the Galaxy, which is based on a book, there's an alien species which I guess are very British. And in their futuristic British monarchy type situation, you have to file 1,000 papers and be approved and go through a really red tape, a lot of paperwork process to do a very simple thing. And in this book, it is exactly like that. So I don't know if the British system is just very hard to get permits and get papers to do things, or if that Guide to the Galaxy movie or book also was inspired by this book. But the future 2047 is like that. Everywhere you go, you need 10 documents proving you need an official this, that, here, and there document. And it was very hard for Monkton to get the papers. He would have starved to death if he didn't lie, basically. But there's a joke about the black market. Let's see. He was given an application. I think it's for food. And it was headed for consideration with a view to inclusion at a meal sitting. He needed permission and an appointment and a card and approved this and that to get a meal. Having read this nice example of Nicolage English twice, I began to feel rather than to understand the general meaning of it. What, I asked the woman behind the desk, does extra administrational mean? Black market, she replied. But can I not get a meal in the black market without completing a form? Of course not, she answered. What next? Okay, that's not the best joke either. I guess you had to read it from the beginning to notice that there are a few subtle jokes. And on top of that, I do have to say, this book was published in London. So it is a British sense of humor, very subtle humor. So you'll have 5 pages of straight nothing of joke-wise, very serious, and then a few tiny jokes. But here is the book. It's real. And I can tell you the first time I noticed this book in the year 2007, 2008, 2009, I posted about it at the Back to the Future forums on bttf.com. And I said, hey, has anyone read this book? I found this book, Back to the Future, published 1947. And all the Back to the Future nerds said, oh, I never heard of it. They're like, wow, that book might be proof of time travel. Someone went back into the past and wrote a book called Back to the Future. That is clearly not the case. Occam's razor says Robert Zemeckis, the writer, and the other writer of Back to the Future clearly picked up a copy of this book and were inspired by it and wrote the movie Back to the Future. So let's get on to other stuff until I can... Okay. Okay, there's one joke. There's one pretty good joke, and then we'll talk about other stuff. On page 107, Monkton talks about, this is the Marty McFly character in the 1947 book Back to the Future. He talks about modern art. There are a lot of jokes these days about what modern art is, and a lot of funny videos on people making fun of modern art and the type of things that get into the Museum of Modern Art. And as Monkton is running away from the police because he doesn't have his identification, he doesn't have anything to prove who he is. He can't get a meal, and when they find out he doesn't have identification, they call the cops. So it's kind of reminiscent. It's kind of reminiscent of that movie starring Sylvester Stallone, where he's a cop that was unfrozen and unthawed to capture Wesley Snipes, the bad guy that was thawed out also. And anyone can walk up to any institution, but the cops are gonna be called and they're gonna immediately be arrested, type of situation. So Monkey is running away, and he can't find anything open. He sees a museum of art, so he runs into a modern art museum, and he describes, this is a 1947 book describing the future. Let's see where it is. A legend on the reverse of my culture pass. He managed to get a culture pass, but it didn't do him much good. So he's on his way trying to find all these government passes. And the culture pass instructed me to approach art with an open mind. I did, but it closed involuntarily. But it closed involuntarily, more like the black eye of a boxer than a Croesus at dusk. And this was not surprising because I am somewhat behind my own times, whereas these artists were well ahead of theirs. I should think 200 years separated us, and to bridge 200 years, you need to have a very broad mind. So he doesn't actually say what the artwork looked like, but he exactly gives a representation of someone 200 years in the past walking into the Museum of Modern Art and them seeing the hideous installations. I'm an artist, I respect art, but I personally, from an artistic perspective, and feel free to disagree, feel that art kind of went downhill when a painting featuring a religious figure was created out of elephant poop. And after that painting became famous, there were containers full of animal whatnot, waste, and it was considered art. And I can only imagine in 2047 what the art would look like if in 2017 it looks this bad. And one of the reasons I did want to do this today on October 21st, besides it being Back to the Future Day, is 2017. Let's see, we got 27, 37, 47. So that's only 30 years in the future. In 30 years, I'm sure I will probably be alive, and I would like to compare the world to this book then. But Back to the Future, it's actually a pretty awesome book. It's kind of hard to read through some of the slow parts because of the Britishness to it, and the Britishness doesn't take away from it. But I have to admit, Back to the Future, produced by Steven Spielberg, directed by Robert Zemeckis, is a more entertaining, action-packed version of the original story, Back to the Future, by me, Bern Stannyland. So let's talk about anything that you guys want to talk about. I'm going to scroll through your questions and see. Modern art sucks. Okay. I had an NDE and OBE in the same occurrence after bad car accident, says High View. Wow, that's I'm sure that's an amazing / scary experience. Sometimes there are funny time problems similar to deja vu, but sometimes more strange than that. You know, we can talk about near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. If anyone would like to talk about this, let's see. I can say I've never had a near-death experience, but I did almost die in a car crash, but luckily I was protected and saved, perhaps by a guardian angel. I don't know. But my last video I uploaded is called Karma Exists, or Karma is Real. And if you could notice, I did retitle it to Guardian Angels Are Real, because some people just don't like the word karma. I think it's very possible a guardian angel helped me out. I just generically use the word karma, not the same as a religious specific piece of doctrine. I use it to describe the balance in the universe. If something was taken from you and it's restored, some type of karma situation took place. It could have been guardian angel related. Because these forces and beings are invisible, there's no way for me to know which it is. Are you going to expose the Ouija boards? Well, let's talk about, and I don't want to popularize this, but has anyone heard about, and I don't even know if it's true, it could be a fake article. Someone said it was a slow news day, but they said that a 6-year-old at school was playing a new game. Remember the Charlie game where people put a cross on a piece of paper and they balanced a pencil and they said Charlie over and over? It was kind of like a Ouija board. It was a trend last year, or was it the year before? Well, there's apparently a new trend. Now, I don't know if this is real or fake. It almost seems like propaganda, but this is the supposed thing that the kid and his friends at school drew it on the ground, referencing the movie, the killer clown Pennywise from the new adaptation, the new version of the Stephen King movie It. And that these 6-year-olds draw it, they just write it, the 2-letter word, and they chant over and over and over, killer clown, killer clown, killer clown. And supposedly these kids said things started happening. I don't know what type of things, but one of the kids said a D was drawn on the ground, and he said nobody drew it. It sounds kind of made up. It sounds kind of fake. Let's hope it's not real. Let's hope that does not become a trend. But concerning Ouija boards, I say don't touch them. Don't mess with them. I've only used a Ouija board one time over the course of one night, and it was probably many, many years ago when I was a kid at my grandma's house. Me and my cousin were playing with it, and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. But that doesn't mean anything, because I think a good 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, nothing happens. And the reason nothing happens is because you're not a good candidate. You're either protected, you're not a good vessel, you're not a good candidate, the atmosphere and conditions aren't right. These negative entities that are invisible around us, they can't just pop up whenever they want. They're very limited in their abilities. There are going to be occultists that say this is because of the moon changes, the astrology charts aren't right, the time of year, the time of day. And I don't know anything about that. I'm an anti-occultist. I don't practice any of that stuff. But I think it's theoretically possible. But I think it's more even generically as ley lines. You've heard of the ley lines. I don't necessarily buy into that. But perhaps some places are more active than others. And perhaps places are more haunted, more receptive with a portal type situation. I don't know. These are invisible things. The subjects are very vague and mixed with a lot of fake nonsense. In no way, shape, or form am I going to repeat and say this is a fact. I am the hoax hunter, but I do think back in the year 2010 and 2011, the singular town I was living in was receptive to negative entities. I moved out of that town, and I've never experienced anything even remotely. Now, sure, residually, I've seen 1%, maybe even 5% of what I experienced. But 95% of it, and even up to 99% of it, has never come back. But Ouija boards, I think, are dangerous. Don't mess with them. Don't play with them. Because even if only 1 out of 100 times it works, you're asking an invisible entity, whether you believe they exist or not. I've had firsthand personal witness that they do exist. I've never seen them with my human eyes. But what I have seen with my human eyes, wide awake, wide open with the lights on, or the sun even still shining through the window, I've seen objects being moved right in front of my eyes. An object like this being moved. Usually, the entity, the poltergeist entity, occasionally it would just move it slowly, but the majority of the time it seemed pretty violent. It would go like this. Let's get a better picture. It would go like this. It would go bam, really hard, and it would fly a pretty good distance. So I knew for a fact it wasn't the train tracks. And on top of that, I didn't live near train tracks. There were no trains anywhere near. And there were no earthquakes reported. There wasn't anyone, there were no foundation problems. This happened hundreds of times, to the point where I would say even 1,000+ times over the course of 6 months. So does anyone else have any questions? Tarot cards. Tarot cards. You know, I heard even someone as open-minded to spirituality and believing everything say tarot cards, they can open a negative portal. And I was very surprised to hear this really new age guy say that. And then the guy, who I believe, I'm not going to name his name, but he said, "Oh no, they're not negative. They're positive." And it's a matter of opinion, but in my opinion, the tarot card is kind of like a super advanced version of the Ouija board. If you are a dealer, that is, a tarot card dealer reader, and then it gets into the realm of frauds. Most definitely, just like the Ouija board, 99 out of 100 times it's fake or nothing happens. You see the videos on YouTube, people fake it. It's easily fakeable. With tarot card readers, you're probably going to run into more fakes than authentic mediums. And the mediums are simply going to be people in sync with the vibration of the entities, where they can give them information. In my opinion, all the information comes from the entities. And I've actually heard many psychics admit this and claim this. I guess some psychics will say it comes from the Akashic records or something like that, a generic term like that. And in the Montauk Project book, Preston calls it the morphogenetic grid. And there are different names for it. But I think perhaps something like that might exist. All I know is these entities are almost like, if it does exist, they're like a midway point between this information, and we probably shouldn't mess with it. Negative things can happen. The movie The Exorcist is based on a boy who was possessed. I saw a documentary. I saw the Catholic priests, and I'm not Catholic, but they showed the room. They opened up the room where the priests conducted the exorcism on the boy, who has remained anonymous to this day because he doesn't want his name out. He doesn't want any press. He doesn't want any public scrutiny. He knows he would either be an instant celebrity or an instant freak, whatever the media would twist his story into being. So I think it's pretty honorable, or maybe he just simply wants to avoid negative entities, just keep a low profile. But once he messed with the Ouija board, he was possessed. It took the Catholic priests a great deal of time to cast it out. The story is based on it. The priests revere that room and they lock it and they don't use it. They only opened it for the documentary. They say they don't open it very often. But what about visiting a psychic? Well, I can tell you relatives of mine have visited psychics, and they gave them advice, cryptic advice, just like in Game of Thrones, where Cersei Lannister is told she's going to have so and so many children, yada, yada, yada. But the relatives who went to a psychic didn't give them that specific answers. They said, oh, I remember the psychic told that person that, oh, you're an old soul. You're an old soul. And da 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 da. Kind of like palm reading. Oh, you're going to have a long life. There's going to be ups and downs and bumps. I'm not convinced they went to the real deal. Some people are real, some people aren't. I have talked about in some of my videos how I do think I have a tiny, minuscule amount of psychicness. I don't like the word. I don't consider myself a psychic. I'm not a psychic. Man, my headphones are really broken. So I need to save up and get some new headphones. But does anyone have any other questions? I don't even know how long this stream will go. Let's take a look how long it has gone. Let's see. Maybe almost an hour. Does anyone have any other questions? Jesus cast demons into the swine from a young man in the Bible, says High View. Yeah, that's a very famous scene in the Bible. And I have come across people that say demons don't exist. Demons aren't real. They don't exist. It's ancient history. And then I find out that same person has faith and they believe in Jesus. And I'm like, wait a second. You believe in Jesus, but you don't believe in demons. Yet Jesus, on multiple occasions, maybe not a million times, but there's a couple verses where he references demons, negative spirits, unclean spirits, and whatnot. And Jesus fasted, I believe, because other people couldn't cast out the demons. Jesus said, this one requires fasting. In other words, it was such a severe case of poltergeist or possession that Jesus had to fast. Even Jesus, the Son of God, perfect character, who I believe did exist and did walk the earth, he had to fast. Who knows? Maybe a day, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days. He goes back to the guy, he does the ceremony, whatever it is. I don't know the exact procedure. Maybe it's even written in there and hinted in there. Commands the demon to leave. And unlike the televangelists who you will see fake such casting out of demons and people act like it happened, to prove the demons were real and not fake, a small minion of multiple demons, they begged Jesus. They said, hey, we want a body. We're in this guy because we like this body. We don't want to just be floating around. Give us a body. Please cast us into these pigs. Jesus already knew what was going to happen. He's not dumb. Jesus could pretty much see the future. You might say Jesus was the most psychic person that ever lived. But for the illustration purposes, perhaps because he knew his apostles were watching and would write this down for future generations, Jesus allowed the demons to destroy even more lives. Those demons knew what they were going to do. They're cast into the pigs and they jump off the cliff immediately and murder the pigs. I think the reason the demons did that is because they're like, how can we trick this guy and how can we commit even more heinous crimes while we're in a body? We can't. We need more bodies. Let's destroy this farmer's property. Let's destroy this farmer's livelihood and kill his pigs. So I think they did that out of hatred for perhaps the guy or whoever else owned those pigs. I'm sure they're pretty ticked off. I don't know if they were compensated, but according to karma, they probably were. Bible is fake. Whether you believe it's fake or not, I know for a fact demons are real. And people say, oh, you read that somewhere. Well, guess what? Guess what, Omar Corona? I didn't read a book and say, okay. What I was doing was I was going to work in the year 2011. It was mid 2011 where the height of it would have been. So June 2011, I went to work. I worked at a call center type place. I got off work at 5 o'clock. I went to Taco Bell. I would get a cheap burrito meal, something like that. I would get a taco, something like that. And then I would come back to my room that I rented on Craigslist for $400 because it was the only thing I could afford because I'm only working at a call center type place. It was a customer support center for a video game was the desk of my thing. Now, people might wonder why I'm throwing in such tiny details as Taco Bell and my call center, because it's a true story. Me eating the Taco Bell and me working at this call center for customer support for Zynga Games, where I supported Farmville, I supported Mafia Wars, I supported Petville, I supported their poker game they had, and a few other games, Frontierville, a lot of dumb Ville games on Facebook at the time. As much as I was answering emails and supporting those games, and as much as I drove the Taco Bell and I was eating Taco Bell, yum, delicious. And I remember, as I mentioned before, the potato grillers came out, and I was eating the potato griller for the first time, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And guess what was happening as I was in my room eating a potato griller? A freaking poltergeist was in my room. And if I had sunglasses sitting on the table, the sunglasses would be flying across the room. And he was 100% invisible. And it was 5:30 p.m. And I was like, what the heck? The first time it happened. But by mid 2011, it had already happened hundreds of times. And I was actually used to it to the point where I was like, okay, that's a poltergeist, all right. I mean, I didn't talk to it. My thoughts at the time were, wow, no one's going to believe me. No one will believe me. And I don't want to record it. I don't want to get a recorder. And here is my rationale. And I've said it many, many, many times. But as you can see, this isn't book related. I didn't read a book. I didn't have a camera this good at the time. Speaking of cameras, this Logitech HD streaming camera is courtesy of amazing Patreons who have supported me on Patreon. Patreon.com/Razimus keeps this channel alive, and I greatly appreciate everything you do for me. I didn't have a camera this good, but I even had the camera probably in my hand at a few times during the 6 months, which was actually closer to 5.5 months. Because the first 2 weeks I moved into this Craigslist room in a house, and I even show the address in my video. Check out my playlist, The Poltergeist Haunting of John Razimus. I tell the gist of the story in a good 4 videos, but you can see that playlist is like 13, 14 videos long. So you can see the lengthy detail. I'm writing a book on it, Corners of Rooms. That book will come out, I'm hoping, next year. So I apologize, it's not coming out this year, but I'm hoping 2018 will be the year that book comes out. And if you want to be on the list, someone even emailed me. They're like, oh, can I get on the list? I'm like, I don't have a list, but sure, you're on the list. So one guy is on the list. I will compile a list if you email me, Razimus@gmail.com. I'm not going to share your email with anyone. I'm not going to spam you with anything. I'll just say, here is the book. Go to my website, pyramidal.com or Razimus.com or wherever it's going to be, but I'm going to have at least 10 videos. So I'm eating a potato griller from Taco Bell. This happened on so many occasions. It wasn't always a Taco Bell griller. Sometimes it was a McDonald's cheeseburger. Sometimes whatever. It's usually after I got home from work. The thing was like waiting for me. I couldn't see it. It was invisible, but the vibe of the room was like this. Yeah, I'm gonna knock over stuff. And even on a few occasions, like, you know what? Should I film this? And I wasn't doing films. You can check my 2011 history. I have one single video. And let's take a look at that video just for reference purposes. Let's take a look at the one video I posted during my horrific poltergeist experiences in 2011. See if I can find it. Gotta go to my channel. I'm gonna share the screen and show it to you. Okay. Let me just share my screen right now. Whoops. Okay, let's see. Share. Screen share. Screen share. Okay. So here is my website. It's on YouTube. youtube.com/hoaxhunter. I tried to do a keyword search. I couldn't find it. Let me just scroll down to the bottom. See if I can find it. I only made one single video in 2011. I was literally, you might say, depressed because something was really bothering me. A poltergeist entity moving stuff around. My gosh, it's not going back far enough. I really dislike it when YouTube does some amazing feature. Oldest. There we go. Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. My first video, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. My seventh video I ever posted to this channel, not including deleting probably the first version of this, was this video right here. So in this commercial I made, it says Hoax Hunter, new episodes materializing soon. And this was recorded in the poltergeist room. I can tell you I did spin the chair a good 10 times, and it finally landed in the middle-ish. It almost looked like the poltergeist touched it at the end, but I think it just was lucky. I mean, so I don't have any proof, all right? I have zero proof. You either take it or you leave it. I said materializing soon. I didn't do anything soon. Nothing came soon. There was nothing, all right? I was so bombarded by a poltergeist entity that my next video that I made was in February 2012. In February 2012, and I apologize if there's an echo. Let me try to fix that. In February 2012, Is there an echo? Let me know if there's an echo. In February of 2012, my first video was about the Philadelphia experiment because I knew a lot about the Montauk Project. I've been researching it since 1997, and I knew that people would say, the Montauk Project's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. So I wanted to prove it not true using proof that the original experiment, the Philadelphia experiment, is a hoax. And I found out it was created by a guy named Carl Allen, who was such a shifty guy, he changed his name to Carlos Allende. Carl Allen to Carlos Allende. And it was hard for people to track him down because he changed his name. But he admits in 1940s or 50s letters to his dad, to his mom, to the UFO publisher, Mr. Jessup, to the Navy of all people, he admits he made it up. The Philadelphia experiment he wrote in the margins of a UFO book, he made the whole story up. It's fake. It's based on the time he went to the naval yard in Philadelphia and he saw a ship that was being degaussed. And it's a bunch of degaussing equipment. Look it up on Wikipedia. You'll see degaussing equipment is very big and bulky, very sci-fi looking to someone in the 40s. And I think it was 1943 that he saw this. And he asked someone, what are they doing? And the guy's like, they're making the ship invisible. They're degaussing it. They're making it invisible to landmines, or to the water equivalent of landmines, water mines. These water mines, they magnetize to the ship and blow up the ship. That's how they work. But when you degauss it, demagnetize it, it doesn't work. And the ship can safely navigate around the deadly mines. He used that information, great fantasy story, which has been ripped off even in his own words, where he barely made a penny from it. He said he probably made $100 from the story, giving a lecture about it once. So that's the guy who invented the Philadelphia experiment, Carl Allen. He has since passed away. Let me stop sharing that. And the fact is, I had poltergeist experiences for 6 months. Does anyone want to talk about anything else? And it wasn't related to reading the Bible. I did read the Bible for about a week because I was trying anything to get this poltergeist entity away from me. And even during reading the Bible for a week, the thing still bothered me. Because in my opinion, it was assigned there and I was supposed to go through something. And I think I came through victoriously. I think I accomplished it. Like I was saying, the reason I didn't record it is I knew people wouldn't believe me. People would see perhaps a book fly off a shelf, and I would have recorded that book fly off the shelf. Books flew off any shelves. I didn't have too many books back then. Matter of fact, I never read a single occult book until a good 1.5, 2 years after the incident, only out of curiosity, but of wanting to know what the poltergeist entity was. I knew for a fact, asking communication with the entity, I would say, oh, can you please knock something over? Can you please knock something over? Let's pretend an entity did knock something over. I would perhaps theoretically be in a contract. I film it, I get views on YouTube, and the comments are going to say fake, fake. Oh, that's so fake. You can, out of your own free will, the demons to get views on YouTube if you want. But guess what? I have zero interest in that. I know for a fact they're real. I'm not crazy. It actually happened. I'm writing a book. The book is going to at least be a testament when I'm dead that, hey, this guy, maybe he did experience that. I did. The book's going to be blunt. It's not going to be full of riddles. Fact. This is what happened, period. I know there are a lot of books on the subject where people are like, oh, who knows? It could be a mystery. Maybe they have psychokinetic powers. I could tell you one thing. I have zero psychokinetic powers. I can't move objects with my mind. It was an entity. And people said, how do you know it was an entity? Because I lived with it as a roommate for 5.5 months. When you live with even an invisible entity, they're your roommate, you get to learn their personality. You get to learn how they really are. You get to learn how they think, how they act, why they do the things they do. Obviously, it's like a blind person trying to figure out what things look like because I couldn't see the entity. It was invisible. So I had to reverse engineer and just figure out and just get in the head of the entity, whatever it was, which I think it was a negative entity, a demon, a generic term for just a nefarious creature from another dimension. I think a slightly different dimension than in movies. Thank you. I rarely buy books, but I would buy your book just to support you, John. Thank you, High View. I appreciate that. My book is not going to be full of riddles. It's going to be, hey, here's the timetable. In 2010, an entity approached me. I'm going to give all the details. I've never talked about that. And then in 2011, months of poltergeist haunting, doubt. A little bit of residual stuff after, a little bit of residual stuff before. But generally speaking, and I was going to do a map quest. I was going to hold up a map quest. I was going to hold up a Google Maps showing the 4 houses I lived at. Just ignore this house and ignore this house. The 2010 house and then the poltergeist house are the only 2 houses that really matter in the context. I confused someone. They said, oh, your poltergeist haunted in many, many various houses? No. One entity appeared in 2010. A totally different entity appeared in 2011, working in collaboration with the first entity. What was their purpose and goal? Maybe they wanted me to YouTube the thing, but I had no desire. And I think there's a lot of hoaxers on YouTube faking. Believe it or not, this is a crazy theory. Movies like Paranormal Activity inspired it. I think perhaps negative vibes, negative thoughts, negative ideas, the dark side of these recesses of these incarnate beings, they love and they want people to hoax, people to fake footage. It muddies the water. It destroys any legitimate investigation in the field. I think it's what Houdini came across when Houdini tried to prove that the spirit tables and the seances with spirits appearing were all fake. Because he could hoax it, because he himself could fake everything, he was convinced it was all fake. Like the Ouija board and the seances and the tarot cards, you're going to come across a lot of fakes. It doesn't mean there aren't real scenarios with authentic cases. Meaning your family could have been witches. I don't think my family are witches. I don't think so. But I would say if psychicness runs in anything, a bit of psychicness. Like what? Like I made 4 David Bowie videos before he died. I've always been a pretty big Bowie fan, but I never albums ever. So I pretty much only just grabbed his music off YouTube or grabbed it off the internet. I never even bought it. I never bought a single David Bowie album in my life. Reordering his last one before he passed away, doing a review. It might be the first review on YouTube. Before he died, I released the review on his birthday, 1 or 2 days before he died. David Bowie saw the devil after researching fanatically. I researched for like 2 months straight on David Bowie, literally a few months before he died. Even I don't know why I was so obsessed with David Bowie until he died. Then I realized, wow, that's probably why I was obsessed. Somehow I knew something was going to happen, or my subconscious knew. I don't know how psychicism works, and I don't claim to be a psychic. So, does anyone have any questions? No, I've never read that. Let's see. Yeah, I am related to Ragnar Lodbrok Sigurdsson, believe it or not. I double, triple, quadruple checked it. Unless someone linked one of my relatives falsely on that Ancestry.com website, unless someone linked it falsely, or maybe it wasn't Ancestry.com, maybe it's Genealogy.com. I don't know the website. I didn't look it up. One of my relatives looked up the website. They showed it to me. I bookmarked it. I double, triple, quadruple checked. I went through every possible angle of it being fake, and it could be fake. It's possible someone watched the show and linked their grandfather to him, which linked me to him. That's a possibility, but I think it's real because it goes all the way from my dad to Ragnar. So my dad is related to Ragnar, and through relation, I am. I thought that was pretty cool. And it said that I was the son, it said that I was related to the son of Ragnar. Specifically, which son? Sigurd Ragnarsson. So in the TV show, the really blonde-haired one, I guess they're all blonde, but not Ivar the Boneless, not the guy who can't walk, and not the other ones. Pretty much the easygoing one, I think. But then again, that show is totally slanted with tons of fiction. So I have a feeling that negative entities view us like the predator in the movie Predator. View people sort of a thermal spectrum, but based on negative, positive aspects. High View said that. You know, I did compare negative entities to the predator in my video, The Attributes of Demons, where I say that demons have X-ray vision. Any occultists, I'm open and willing to say, feel free to challenge me if you think I'm lying. Demons have X-ray vision. Any diehard super occultist, and I'm not that, I'm an anti-occultist, never practiced magic in my life, never willingly, purposefully summoned a demon in my life. These things come to me with me having no want or need for the things to appear. But on one rare occasion, maybe even two, during the 5.5 months, I noticed objects being moved within things. Objects inside of containers being picked up and played with. And I was like, immediately, the first thought in my mind was, this thing has X-ray vision. I didn't say it out loud. I just said it I just thought about it. And I was researching, probably in 2012, 2013, 2014. I came across a sorcerer, which I'm weary of even saying his name. I'm not going to say who it is. He had a blog where he said he summoned demons. A lot of people are skeptical. They said, oh, this guy's full of crap. He doesn't summon jack squat. He talked about what these demons are saying to him. And this guy publishes some books, but I don't think he sells them really. Maybe he does. I don't think he's very prominent in the community. You probably never heard of him. I don't think he has a YouTube. I only saw this old blog, and he doesn't post on it anymore. And on one of the occasions, he went through the Goetia, or the Goetia, and he summoned the standard Goetia demons, Astaroth, whatnot, etc. I'm not going to say the other names. But on one of them, he put an item in the box and locked it. I think even like put chains around it. Something that only a sorcerer would do. and he put it in the circle before he ever summoned the entity. And maybe the entity was watching, but I don't think so. The sorcerer's having a conversation with the entity, and I think what was in the box was something the sorcerer was willing to destroy as an offering to the demon to worship him. I do not recommend. Don't make any offerings to demons. There is even another occultist who says don't do it because it permanently attaches you to them to the point where they're going to follow you the rest of your life. I would not want to be followed the rest of my life by an invisible, nefarious entity, even if for 5 seconds it wanted to help me out. Maybe it's going to want to kill you down the road. Don't do it. It's too big a risk. But it might want to do a swine off the cliff scenario. Anyway, the guy says, the sorcerer says to the demon, he has a full-blown conversation with them. He said they kind of appear ghostly. You can see through them sometimes. Sometimes they're solid. And he has smoke burning from the incense to really help them materialize. And it could be in his mind being projected as opposed to being actually there. But I believe the guy because he said, hey, I have this in this box locked here as an offering. And the demon said, yeah, I know, I can see it. And he asked him, how can you see it? And the demon was rarely blunt. Demons usually talk in riddles. They usually talk in the most confusing way possible, according to my research and according to firsthand experience. And I'll talk about that in my book. But the entity said, oh, I could see right through it. And it admitted it had X-ray vision. Very crazy, very scary. No, it's not E.A. Coetting. It's a different guy you've never heard of. I've never publicized his name. I've never said his name. But in the Attributes of Demons video on X-ray vision, you can probably figure it out if you do a keyword search. But I'm not going to advertise him because I think it's a little bit too scary. The guy actually said to demons, should I start a magic school and get a bunch of sorcerers? So I really don't want to help him start a Harry Potter school like Hogwarts, because unlike Hogwarts, and I'm wearing a Harry Potter t-shirt right now. I'm wearing a Slytherin shirt. He will start his own Slytherin order, and it's not going to be fun and games and rainbows and clouds and beautiful things. It's going to be negative entities manipulating humans as puppets, just like the swine off the cliff. Yeah. High View said, I think that the last video you talked about, negative entities, demons, you said never to make personal relationships with them. That's 100% true. It's the reason I didn't talk and converse with the poltergeist that was knocking stuff over in my room. After reading this book, Charmed by Darkness by Roger Morneau, and the original book, and I'm not this guy's religion. I'm not advertising the books. I'm not advertising, although pick them up if you're interested in what I think is an authentic case of negative entities and what they can do, even to an extreme extent. I would say this guy, his first gut feeling was after he left this negative organization, a poltergeist showed up in his room and it was knocking stuff over. It was doing extreme stuff, levitating objects, full-blown lamps and pictures on the wall. I didn't experience that, but I do believe because of what I saw and minimal levitation with the screw in my computer, a screw was picked up inside, which is how I know it had X-ray vision. I think it had levitation abilities. It just didn't want to showcase them to me. But It showcased them to Roger Morneau because he was an advanced extreme case. He knew beyond a shadow of a doubt who they were, what they were, because they revealed themselves to him, and so they really wanted to punish him and go the extra mile. And it's knocking stuff over. He said he really didn't want to communicate with it. Opening up communication, they're going to deceive you. They're expert liars. They're suave, expert, genius liars. It'd be the equivalent of a baby, virtually, an adult with a baby's mind, being introduced to a hive of really nefarious individuals that want to exploit them and just take advantage of them. Maybe someone like that going to prison or going, I don't want to make fun of people, but these entities are like sharks. They're going to just destroy you in any way they can. And it sounds corny, it sounds cheesy, but the movie War Games, starring Matthew Broderick, the computer said the only way to win is to not play. And that's how they figured out how to cause this machine with AI to stop sending out the nuclear codes to launch these missiles to save the world. As dumb as that analogy is, that thought went through my mind 100 times at least when this thing was knocking stuff over, when I was considering filming it. If I even open up a dialogue, I've already lost. It's smarter than me. It's older than me. It knows things, and I'm a baby compared to it. Yeah, they know the history of the universe. If they're as old as people say they are. I have seen double levitation and more. So Omar Corona, feel free to share. What kind of levitation have you seen? I'm willing and open. It's not just a stage for me. I recommend you open up a channel. They mimic, they learn. Yeah, they definitely do mimic and learn. I have a video about the Devil's Master Plan, which has been demonetized, turned yellow, because YouTube doesn't like it. But in that video, I talk about how it copies Arthur Conan Doyle's voice. And it's a weird lodge in England, and they record it in the dark, and no one can videotape it. And even if they could, it's pitch black, and it's a seance scenario, and a medium speaks, or a spirit box or a spirit trumpet speaks, some weird scenario where it talks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, but it was able to exactly mimic the voice of Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, even if it was this medium who's just a good impressionist, maybe they should become a stand-up comedian. But on top of that, they claim the medium of the night was a female, and the voice was clearly an old, elderly man, a male, and it sounded like Arthur Conan Doyle's voice. Very creepy. I agree. Don't open yourself up to negativity. Let life's difficult enough. Yeah, life is super difficult. I can tell you life gets way more difficult after you know what's around you. Ignorance is bliss is a very true statement in this case. Okay, Omar Corona says, I had two lighters sitting on top of a table thing. Both lighters flip a few times and then landed on their sides. My neighbor who saw this ran outside scared. I knew it was spirits. Wow, that's pretty crazy. I believe you. I have an open mind. I think these entities do stuff like that. Perhaps it thought, here's a good atmosphere for us to play some tricks. There was a commenter that left a comment saying, Omar, thanks for sharing that. On one of my poltergeist videos, I really greatly appreciate them. If I could open up a support group or a website poltergeist support group, help group. You're not crazy. The opposite of what a doctor is going to tell you. Perhaps there are mentally ill people, but I don't think you're mentally ill. I guarantee you, I'm willing to regiment myself through any tests. I'll take any lie detector test ever made. And I'm sure a crazy person would say the same thing, but I'm genuinely honest. I would go through any test. My book is going to be a testimony of the truth, but this commenter left a comment. They said, I've seen poltergeist activity too. My lipstick rolled back and forth on my table multiple times. Out. I mean, that's not their words, that's my words, but it scared them. And so tiny little subtle things. It's almost like they're testing their abilities. And they're waiting. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but according to multiple religions, and this is not a religious channel, some veil is going to be pulled down, and maybe we'll see them one day. Some veil is going to be ripped open. The velvet curtains will be ripped open. And perhaps mass poltergeist activity will happen on a mass scale as an attempt to destroy us all at once. That would reveal their identity, and it would be a concrete fact at that point. But I don't know their game plan. Perhaps they enjoy the singling out of the lone wolf, because I'm sort of a lone wolf, and I think they picked on me because of that. They think, oh, this guy doesn't have too many friends. No one's going to believe him. Even this guy's family members probably won't believe him. I've shared it with my family members, and I would say even my close family members, there's probably 2 of them, 3 of them that don't believe me. But luckily, there's 3 or 4 that do believe me. So even in my own family, it's like 50-50 or 60-40 or something. It's too bad. I start to talk about the subject because I just randomly talk about it sometimes, because this one guy came up to me at a party at my brother's house, and he said, oh, the guy has a low opinion of me. And I don't know the guy. He's just a relative of a relative. I don't even know his name. And he's clearly a smart guy. He's an intelligent guy. He probably has a good job. Nice guy. But for some reason, he looked down at me and he's like, have you seen the new Batman versus Superman? And I'm like, no, I have not seen the new Batman versus Superman. That sounds extremely stupid. I'm not into versus movies. I've never seen Batman versus Predator or any of the other stupid versus movies. Oh, okay, I didn't either. See, he wanted to, I don't know, he wanted to put me down in some odd way. So, sin, it's probably negative for me to do so. I didn't do it for any nefarious reason, but I wanted to give the guy a gist. I don't collect action figures. I don't collect comic books. I don't play video games all night in my dungeon. And there's nothing wrong with people that do that, but that's the opinion the guy had of me. So I started telling him about my poltergeist experience. I said, and I think this guy was spiritual, and I wanted to relate to him on that level. And I said, hey, in 2010, a poltergeist stuff over in my room. Poltergeists are real. They exist. And it freaked him the crap out. And he basically has never talked to me ever again. I tried to go down the story, but he ran out of the room. He was scared. Okay. So High View says, I have had two experiences that freaked me out, and fortunately, both were observed by other people. So I know it isn't a figment of my imagination. That's a key. That's a lucky thing. You are very lucky that multiple people saw it. A few people did know where I live, in my room, to the point of seeing where I lived. Luckily, they knock over there. I'm surprised my roommates didn't hear it. Sometimes it was so loud, I would expect they would think I was knocking on the walls myself. Robert Fortunato wants to join the discussion. Well, hello tonight, but Robert Fortuno, I promise on the next episode, I will two people that, as long as they don't cuss, no cussing, and no bad behavior, such as anything negative in the context of what YouTube is going to strike down. I don't care if this video makes 10 views and makes 1 penny. I just like to be in the green in the search results so people can find the video. For wanting to be in the green, to be honest. Is there anything we can do? What about Slender Man? Come on. Slender Man is an urban myth, but some people claim they were possessed by Slender Man. I heard a girl that stabbed another girl because of Slender Man got off because of insanity. And maybe she was insane. It's an urban myth. But just because it's an urban myth, it doesn't mean negative entities can't a negative famous image and use it. Even it, Pennywise the Clown. Thanks. Yeah, that's Michael J. Fox. Back to the Future Part 2 jacket. Even fictional characters, these demons are smart. I've noticed they inspire pop culture and they also rip off from pop culture. So atheists look at them as nothing other than pop culture. But they're more than that. They're literal, they're actual invisible entities from a higher dimension, in my opinion. Make sure to give me thumbs up. 15 thumbs ups. Wow. Thank you guys very much. 15 thumbs up. Okay. All right. All right. Nope. Robert Fortunato. That's actually a good question. I've never done DMT. I've never done drugs. In the past, out of social reasons alone, my friend was like, "Hey, you want to smoke a Camel cigarette?" I'm like, "I don't smoke." He's like, "Come on, smoke with me." I'm like, "Okay." So I smoked a couple Camel cigarettes in high school. I smoked a couple Cool cigarettes. You want to smoke a Cool? I'm like, "I don't smoke." They're like, "Come on." I'm like, "Okay." So peer pressure. I did smoke a couple cigarettes, but luckily, not too many because my lungs are healthy. Um, I have had alcohol in my life, and my favorite beer is Einstock from Iceland, but I can't get it. They don't make it, they don't sell it at my local store anymore. They had it at Bevmo for 5 seconds, but they don't have it anymore. But as far as 2011, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't do DMT, I didn't do mushrooms, I didn't do cocaine, heroin, drugs. I didn't do anything. 100% sober. There's an atheist named Penn Jillette, the famous illusionist from Penn and Teller. And I have a similar perspective on life that he has. And he's an atheist. He doesn't have any religious or spiritual reasons for doing this. He said, this is Penn Jillette, he said, I want my mind to be sharp to see and observe reality as it really is. I don't want what happens to other people. I don't want to have some type of issue or illness with my mind due to my use of substances. And his friend Teller, his best friend Teller, has the exact same philosophy. As a matter of fact, Teller is older than Penn, and when Penn met Teller, that was pretty much the first thing that impressed upon him. And both of them abstain from drugs and alcohol, and they're even cleaner than I am, because I admit I've smoked and drank a little bit only for social reasons, and even rare social reasons at that, like New Year's type scenarios. But the whole gist of saying that is drugs and alcohol are not the result of me seeing the poltergeist entities for 5.5 months. I would have to been the most wasted person in the world to experience that. But no, my mind is sober. I did not do any drugs. That's a true story. Okay. Ganderstein says my experiences convince me that there is no doubt there is a God. Now, I personally think a higher supreme being exists, but if you don't, I do try to see your perspective. I have a best friend who's an atheist, who used to be devout follower since youth. So that's might be one of the reasons why I try to see the rationale behind everyone's perspective. I'm not going to put down atheists. I'm not going to put down any religion. I like to try to uplift. If you want to look at it from a psychological perspective, that's fine. I know psychologists in the past have said poltergeist activity is some type of mental rare condition. I disagree. It's an actual entity. I got to know the thing by observing it, observing me. Freaky scenario, but it was like an animal. It was animalistic. I would watch a movie on my computer. It would creak the table and watch me. It wouldn't even pretend, it wouldn't even do what demons are supposed to normally do. Demons are supposed to be 100% unseen and unheard and silent observers, and maybe tempt you when they have the chance. This thing was a full-blown poltergeist that would sit down right next to me and make tons of noise and really get my attention. And I didn't ever open communication with it other than telling it to leave a couple times, which backfired on me. Because every time I told it to leave, it would come back and almost be twice as loud. But I would be like, okay, I'm going to continue to watch this movie. I know this is off topic, but is that the Ultima Online Charter Edition box? Let me see. Are people that extreme where they can see behind me? Oh my god. Ultima Online Charter Edition box. Okay, my room is messy because I sell stuff on eBay occasionally and I try to find boxes and stack up boxes, but no, this is not for sale. Actually bought this on eBay. Oh, this one. Oh, this one. Okay. So this is 2 charter editions stacked right here. I gotta see real time, man. And this is the original Ultima Online. I'm a veteran of the Ultima Online game. I hope I didn't damage it. But here is my original 1997 copy of Ultima Online with the rare map box. Most people discard and threw the map box in the trash. Not me. I kept it in as good condition as I could. I purchased this at Software Etc. in 1997. What was it? November 97? September? September 97? November 97? I didn't buy it on the first day. Because I beta tested this thing for so many months for free, I got tired of it a little bit. So I waited literally 5 days. And I think I played on the sixth day of launch. But I did play for a couple years. I quit. I came back for 6 months. I quit. I came back. I quit. I'm not a huge gamer, but because of this game, it spoiled me to only want to play sandbox, massive multiplayer online games where there's a massive amount of map space you can run around and do whatever you want, build whatever you want. And there aren't too many games like that anymore. You have the original Warcraft box. That's cool. That's cool. I used to have that. I used to have Warcraft 1 and 2 and 3. And I still have the 3 box somewhere, but I don't know what happened to 1 and 2. Old boxes seem to disappear. All right, let's see. We're checking out all your stuff. I'm not here to show off my stuff, but you know, I do have a couple pieces of art by Val Kilmer. I think Val Kilmer is a cool artist, and I really appreciate his art. This is going on way too long, It's going on way too long. But let me show you, just real quick, it's no big deal. Let me show you Val Kilmer's paintings, if that is possible. Okay. All right. Okay, here we go. So this is the newest one. I save up a lot of money. I'm not rich, but Val Kilmer is rich in artistic ability, in my opinion. It's his character, Doc Holliday, from the movie Tombstone, one of the greatest modern day westerns ever made. In my opinion, the greatest modern day western. And Val Kilmer paints these, and he sells them on his website. ValKilmer.com or ValKilmer.gallery, something like that. And I think he's a cool dude. Here is my Pyramar pyramid I made myself. Here's a stack of Ultima boxes that I'm not selling. I'm going to keep those. The bottom one is a rare version of Monkey Island something or other, the last Monkey Island. And we have a penny farthing that I got in Los Angeles at some antique store. And they tried to force a little toy bike to go with it. I'm like, I don't want the toy bike. I just want that. And I got a really good deal on that. Here's a lamp that I got at a furniture store in North Hollywood, and I paid dirt cheap, hardly anything for it. And it's my favorite lamp. It's pretty awesome. Here's just 2 paintings that I painted quite a while ago. I think I painted them like in 2004, 2005, 2006-ish. And it's just a rampant rearing horse and a rampant rearing lion. And here's a painting. I'm sorry about the camera. It's hard to get it. Let's see. I got this painting from my grandpa. And it's obviously from the 70s or 80s. But I think it's pretty cool. It's the scene of people walking in the rain, and there is their umbrella. So there we go. It's their umbrella. They're walking in the rain, and there's an umbrella. It kind of reminds me of Cowboy Bebop for some reason. And here are my books, and I'm continually collecting more and more books every day. And someone said, "Are they for sale?" No, they're not for sale. I do occasionally sell some stuff, but nope. And I am going to do a book review of one of those books. This one, the Araman book. I'm going to do a review on that pretty soon. But this camera is courtesy of my Patreon supporters on patreon.com/Razimus. Patreon.com/Razimus is where I got all the funds and the help to purchase that camera. I really appreciate the help from my Patreons. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying. Have you ever heard of the crying pictures that are meant to bring bad luck? Nope, I've never heard of that. What do you think about the Ouroboros? Ouroboros, that's a good question. By Gander Stein. I'm not an occultist. I'm sure they could give a really extremely eloquent description of the snake biting its tail for infinity. It is kind of a symbol for infinity. I've heard of dark definitions of it, which I'm not going to talk about. So the occult world talks about some really dark versions of it, but there are some beautiful infinity versions of it. My favorite connection to the snake biting its own tail symbol involves my relative Sigurd, Snake in the Eye Ragnarsson. Legend goes Sigurd, born of Ragnar, Lodbrok Sigurdsson. Sigurd was born with that symbol in his eyeball, and they named him permanently. His middle name is Snake in the Eye, but it wasn't any snake. It was the Ouroboros. It was the snake biting its own tail. So I think that's very cool, and the TV show Vikings didn't ever show that. It's not rocket science. They could have just looked it up and done it, but nevertheless, it's a very cool story to have a relative with Snake in the Eye in their name. And here I am wearing a snake t-shirt. Wee den going on there. Well, I'm trying to clean up. This is like stuff I'm cleaning up. I have more room, and I'm going to clean it up. I know I have a messy room. Okay, so Brandon has a 2,000-year-old Ouroboros brackets from the Roman Empire. That's cool. Cool thing to have. I would, if I saw some ancient thing like that, I would definitely. That's one of the symbols I do like next to the Ankh. I'm a fan of the Ankh. Is this working? Okay, let's see. Looking at the wrong one. All right, I had to move the angle. But if anyone has any questions, this might close up pretty soon. But if anyone has any other topics they would like to discuss, I know I don't have any guests this time, but next time on the third Hoax Hunter Live show, there will be guests. And I'll invite people on, and hopefully even you could be a guest, as long as you're not some sock puppet account pretending to be someone just so you can troll. We definitely don't want trolls. But I trust a lot of you. You seem like really great individuals. 18 thumbs up. I really appreciate that. And I thank you for watching. Let's see. Do you have any questions? Are you familiar with the 1111 phenomenon? Yes, I heard about it for the first time on Art Bell, probably in the 90s. And to be honest, I don't know much about it other than it represents two doorways. You can go this way or that way. And it's like a crossroads, a crux. Which way do you want to go? That's all I know about it. That's literally all I know. So if you know more about that, feel free to share. Do you think demons are aliens? Personally, I talked about that at length a couple times in my videos. The Devil's Master Plan, aliens or demons. I don't know what the name of the video is, but I personally was visited, and I have a video, and I don't have any alien abduction encounters. I've never been abducted by aliens. I think maybe on one forum I said, "Oh, I can relate," but full blown going to the spaceship Whitley Strieber, I've never experienced that. But in 2002, I believe it was 2002, I had a dream within a dream scenario. It might have even been a dream within a dream within a dream. What happened was I was doing something, I don't know what, and I woke up and I was in bed. And I realized what I was doing was just a dream. And so I'm like, okay, I'm woken up. This is cool. And I look and I see a gray alien at the foot of my bed. And I freaked out. And I could tell you the height. I could tell you what it looked like. It was about 3.5 feet tall, in my guess. And it was skinny. It was pretty skinny, but not too skinny. It was just average skinniness. Its skin, let me think. I think it might have been naked. I don't think it had clothes on. I think it was naked, but I could only see the torso. Its waist was cut off by the foot of my bed. And its skin was gray. It was kind of like bluish gray. I'm trying to find if there's anything that color in my room, but I'm not seeing anything. I guess sort of like this color right here. It's probably not going to translate too good, but the color of the thing's skin was sort of like this. And its eyes were halfway closed. Its eyes were pretty big, but not exaggeratedly as big as you see in the movies or in the classic drawings. Its eyes were pretty big, but they were halfway closed. They're very squinted. So I saw this squinted, naked, bald, gray alien. I believe its mouth was a slit that was totally closed. And its nose was so non-existent, I don't even think I saw the holes. And it just stood there staring at me. My immediate reaction was to move. I wanted to move and get out of there, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed. And I thought to myself, this is probably a demon. I thought to myself, am I in a dream? I just woke up from a dream. How can this be a dream? So when I realized I was in a dream, possibly being induced by a demon, because it didn't seem like a regular dream. It seemed very vivid. I could see my room that I was actually in. When I realized it was a dream, I was able to force myself awake. And when I looked up, my room was exactly the same and the entity was gone, nowhere to be seen. So I was literally in a dream for a few seconds, and then another dream, and then woke up. An Inception type scenario. But that one scenario alone, I felt a negative presence. And it didn't seem anything other than demonic. Because I've felt negative entities, actual demons, it seems to sync up exactly with that negative feeling. I think aliens are demons. People are going to say it's otherwise. but I disagree. I have seen zero evidence of physical craft, and unless Donald Trump wants to release the Roswell UFO files, I'm going to keep that opinion. Donald Trump is supposedly going to release the secret JFK files, and I'm excited about that. Whether you like Trump or not, I think that's pretty cool. I've never vocally said anything about vote for him. I've never vocally said I support him. I've made a couple videos saying it's odd that he seems to have a magic power, that he gets whatever he wants. I made a video saying he is talked about as being the inspiration for Biff in Back to the Future, specifically in part 2, the alternate 1985. It is still October 21st, Back to the Future Day, so a tie-in with Donald Trump and Biff, alternate casino owning, basically the mayor or president of that alternate universe. He could do anything he wanted. And I'm not saying Trump is like that, but he does seem to be rich. He was into casinos, and the writers did admit he was inspiration. Super Trump. Yeah, thank you. That's the name of my video. I think all politicians are puppets. I agree that the political world is slimy, no matter what side you're on. I'm not a fan of politics. This channel doesn't focus on politics and never will. Okay, so Ganderstein says, I believe each 11 in the 1111 phenomenon can be seen as an Ouroboros, a cycle rebirth. 111 represents you, the other God. Both are always being reborn, adapting to one another for eternity. That's a cool definition. I've never heard that before. So that's pretty cool. Thank you, Ganderstein. You keep getting ads. I apologize. I didn't know live videos even have ads. I didn't click anything, but I don't know too much about streaming. I'll try to disable any ads on future live streams. I apologize for that. Okay, let's see. Well, this video is going to be ending pretty soon, but if anyone wants to talk about any other subjects, let me know. That's one of my sleep paralysis experiences, high view. I could talk about 2 other sleep paralysis experiences if anyone wants to hear about it. And this is recent. The last time I had a sleep paralysis incident was probably 6 months ago to a year. I'm really bad at recording the exact dates of things. Matter of fact, I drew a picture of it. So maybe I do have a date of it. I have a stack of papers over there. It's probably in there, but it's too hard to get to with all this stuff around me. But 6 months to a year ago, I believe, and I do believe in the scientific version of sleep paralysis. I know the body does shut off its mechanism for movement so you don't walk in your sleep. And people that don't have that ability, or it's shut off somehow in their brain, they sleepwalk all night long and they act out their dreams. So I do understand the scientific perspective and I accept it. But I think there's a false sleep paralysis or a mimicked sleep paralysis by actual negative entities. People that don't believe negative entities exist are going to reject this information. But I've had too many experiences with negative entities. I've only had a handful, maybe 6, maybe 7 actual sleep paralysis, and they're spread out among years. And it's not abduction. It's just, I think, an entity jumping, latching onto me for whatever reason, to scare me, freak me out. But about 6 months to a year ago, the entity tried to chokehold me, and it tried to grab me. And this is a rare, phenomenal thing that happened to me. I envisioned holding a shield, and I could feel the weight, physical, actual weight on me, not in the dream, outside of the dream. I could feel someone on top of me trying to chokehold me, but they couldn't. They were held back. So I felt someone trying to do something, and I felt the weight on my chest and the weight against my arm. But in the dream, and it was a dream simultaneously, but when I woke up, I knew that he was real to the extent of an entity trying to attack me. But I was protected by a shield. So I thought that shield technique was pretty cool. I didn't plan it, it just happened. The time before that was, I think I said about 6 months before the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know the time frame. I can Google it real quick. 2014, it came out November 24th, 2014, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I didn't watch any previews. I never read the comic book. I didn't know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy. When I watched it on October 24th or later, I really thought it was cool. But about 6 months before this movie came out, I had an experience that involved sleep paralysis where I think it was the same entity. It jumped on me, tried to chokehold me, tried to hold me down, and I didn't have a shield. I didn't have any protection. I was like, ugh. And I don't think it really grabbed my throat. It just pressed down on my chest a great deal, and it paralyzed me, and I couldn't move. And my eyes were closed, but I believe I opened my eyes. I opened my eyes, and I was awake, and I couldn't see anything. I was still held down. This only lasted for a few seconds. And then I closed my eyes, and I could see the entity. I could see it. And it's the first time I ever saw the entity. And the second time during the shield incident, I did see it as well. And I forgot to mention that. But during this incident, my eyes were closed and I saw it. And it looked very similar to Groot from the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. But it was a pitch black, fully black version of Groot. And he was a small, tiny person version of Groot. And their head was shaped like a human head, but it had Groot texture to it, really tree bark and beady black eyes like Groot has in the movie. But I think it might have had hair or a black hood. It was faint. I only saw it for a few seconds, and I could only see with my eyes closed. When I opened my eyes, I couldn't see it. It lasted maybe 5, 10 seconds, 15 tops, and it was gone. And then the second time, which was about 6 months to a year ago, I think the same entity jumped on me. And while I envisioned my shield with my eyes closed, and this all sounds crazy, consider it a story if you don't believe in this stuff, but consider it a dream if you don't believe in this, but I felt a negative presence and a physical pressure on my chest during this. Even when I was awake, I was like, that was a physical thing jumping on me. But it looked less like Groot the second time I saw it. It looked more like grayish, really dark gray, and instead of tree bark like Groot, it was more like just cuts, like he was made out of clay with a bunch of cuts. Like it was made out of really dark clay with a bunch of cuts, but the cuts were kind of like cobblestones. So the same entity seemed to kind of change, or maybe my perception, or I was allowed to see it. I don't know, but that's what it looked like the second time. I think these things are shapeshifters. I think they can choose and project how you see them. I know that sorcerers describe them as they summon them, and I'm not a sorcerer, but I read for research purposes. Sorcerers say they appear like maybe a goat man, some of them like a werewolf type man, some of them appear like a king with a golden armor sitting on a bull. sitting on a snake, sitting on a dragon, sitting on the craziest animals, sitting on a turtle, sitting on animals that don't exist. They can shapeshift into anything they want. I don't know if they're testing out different shapes with me or it's just my perception of what they look like, but that's my last two encounters with sleep paralysis, the paranormal supernatural version as opposed to the scientific version. Wow. Ganderstein said, I have a friend that had the paralysis experience, and he said he saw a little creature sitting on his chest. That would scare the crap out of me. Yeah. Uh, I didn't see it clear as day. I saw it vivid, but in a dreamlike, almost black and white state. So maybe it was in color, but I only saw gray and black tones. Incubus and succubus, those are names for the sleep demons. I did share an experience of shared incubus, but I'll check that out, check that video out. It's called The Attributes of Demons, and I have a couple videos on that subject. So I really appreciate Brandon Young says he had pressure on my throat. Wow, a shield. Yeah, I thought the shield was interesting. I wasn't able to, maybe I visualized the shield. I don't know. But if you're in such a scenario, perhaps try visualizing a shield. I don't recommend the Golden Dawn's magic spells of a shield because I don't believe in magic. But the shield that appeared, I don't even remember visualizing it. It was just there. Truth is your shield. Perhaps. Shapeshifters. They do change. But according to sorcerers, the sorcerer can command it. If it appears as a gruesome monster, the sorcerer can command it to appear as a human, appear as something not frightening. And apparently, if it's a submissive demon, it will do so. If it's not, it won't. But I don't know how vivid they see these entities. Some of them only see them in a trance-like state, very blurry. So I don't know. I've never seen a super vivid, and I've never seen anything with my eyes open other than objects being moved by an invisible entity. I apologize for any ads. I'll try to fix that. Maybe there's a default of ads for live streams. I clicked go live. I didn't check what the boxes say. Live stream number 3 coming soon. It is 9:23 my time, PM. So Ganderstein says, another friend years ago told me about seeing a little man with a hat going into his closet. I teased him about it at the time, but now I see lots of stories about the Hat Man. Now I wonder about it. I have heard about some type of Hat Man, but some people say Slender Man is like that. And let's face it, Slender Man could be real in the context of a shape-shifting demon. You never know. But I never saw a Hat Man in particular, but it doesn't discount. People see different things. Some lady saw a reptilian because she was reading reptilian alien books. I think the entity took advantage of that, shapeshifted into a reptilian. Thank you for watching Jetpack 1000. I appreciate all the support and thumbs ups. This is going to conclude 9:24 p.m. I think we've gone close to an hour and 20 minutes. So I thank you for watching. I don't want to drag it on too long, but I appreciate all of you. I appreciate it lasted for about 5.5 months, my incident. But I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus with Hoax Hunter and Occult Unmasked. I'm going to be making more detailed actual investigation videos that go into elaborate detail. Not only the Back to the Future video, but I will be doing a key detailed summary of the comparison between this book and the movie. I'm going to be doing a video on Jimmy Page, like I promised a year ago. I'm going to be doing a video on him being into the occult. Who knows how deep it goes? I'm doing a video on many subjects. I have a list of 100 subjects, but more than just 100 subjects. I just picked up a book specifically for a video. It involves Hollywood. And I'm going to be doing some researching into perhaps secret societies in Hollywood if I get lucky. If I don't get lucky, I'm just going to hear some urban myths. But if it's newsworthy, I will share it with you guys. I hope Trump releases the Roswell files. The JFK files are cool, and I think that's going to be a huge story. And people will look up to him for that. Conspiracy guys. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I think something fishy happened with Roswell. Even if it was mundane, I hope we get to hear the true story one day. So actually a UFO video. I'm going to reproduce, and I don't want to go into details, but I don't want anyone to copy me, but the 1997 Mexico City UFO. I'm going to get a skyline. I'm going to give my interpretation of how it was done, and many more videos coming soon of so many subjects. I'm redoing the intro. I'm doing a new promo. I want to do some art pieces that take a lot of time. I've been working on a new intro for Occult Unmasked for 6 months off and on. A 10-second intro for 6 months. It's just, I did everything myself. The little tiny things. For example, I made a mask. And let's check out that creepy mask. I made this dumb creepy mask for Eyes Wide Shut style Occult Unmasked intro. But I'm going to be doing something really elaborate. This is probably the least elaborate thing in my new Occult Unmasked intro, and you will be seeing that hopefully before the end of the year. I've been working on it so long. I really want to finish it. And you're going to see more live streams. And if you want to see more live streams, let me know. Give a thumbs up. Leave a comment. I want you to do a subject on a live stream on this. I want you to join this guest. Future episodes, I will invite guests. I thank you for watching. And maybe I'll do a free-for-all like Brandon Young did. Just put the link of the thing in the chat. Hopefully no one curses and gets the video taken down. But you guys have been cool tonight. I really appreciate it. Until next time, this has been John Razimus with Hoax Hunter Live. Also, Occult Unmasked subjects. Be seeing you.